so near, yet so far. You could say that about a number of games where they were in winning situations, winning positions, and just strange things have happened. Not to mention off the field, they've had so many issues that have contributed to their problems. But how do you review this season for Delhi? Is it an unlucky season or is it a bad season?
I think it's unlucky in the end because of what they went through early on, and we can't underestimate how hard it is to deal with these strict bubbles when players are dealing with COVID, etc. And Prithvi Shaw out at the back end of the season with fever and in hospital. All those things contribute. Nokia coming in not quite fully fit and only been ready halfway through the season. And overall, there was just no consistency. It was win-loss the whole way through. But we still thought they were a good side the whole way through. We still anticipated them making a run at the top four, which they did. But in the end, this performance is probably emblematic of the whole season, that they just weren't quite there when it mattered.
Could you point areas, Piyush, if I asked you as to where Delhi were inadequate? We've said that about a lot of teams that didn't make it to the playoffs. Said, yeah, we've identified areas. Seems like it's a harder question for the Delhi Capitals, fair to say, just looking at how they've had to deal with so many changes in personnel?
So many changes, and I feel the other problem was the middle order for them. If you see the middle order, the way middle order batted, first 50 from the middle order batter came so late. So that is something which is really, they look back and review that will something really hurt. And they believe lot of all-rounders. So I think a pure batter is always needed in middle because we know T20 is a game, those bits and pieces. But I feel personally, a specialized cricketer is like if somebody specialized in batting or somebody specialized in just bowling. So that really makes a huge difference. So they'll definitely have to think about it and see. Later also, they finally dropped Lalit Yadav and they got a pure batter in. So that really makes a difference. Middle order, they really need to think. And something what I feel is Rishabh Pant, he didn't get runs this season like what we expect from it. We had cameos of 30 runs, 35 runs, but that's not it because he sets his standards really high, and that is not more enough from a like him. So there must be a lot of things, but still they would have loved to win and made it to the top four. But that's how it is right now.
Yeah. I think we got most of that, even though Piyush's internet is just a little up and down. But yeah, two good points made. If I could just extend on the points Piyush makes. Missing a pure batter. I mean, once Shreyas Iyer was let go of or not retained or wanted to go to captain somewhere else, it almost felt like that's a key figure that you're missing. And is it fair to say one pure class Indian batter would have made a difference to that team, or still is something that this is missing?
It's obviously going to make a difference to every team, particularly Shreyas Iyer's position in that middle order. He wasn't that destructive for Delhi, but he was a constant, he was consistent. And he was a run getter, so that they definitely would have missed that. I think you could have found the runs in other places. We started to see it from Mitchell Marsh then. Prithvi Shaw, back end of this season with a lack of form and obviously illness, he could have picked up that slack. The middle order that Piyush alludes to as well. So when you see that Delhi team on paper, you think they're good enough. And so when they don't make it, then you've got to find you've got to question some of the things that went on, but ultimately some players didn't quite have the season that they would have liked. Even Warner not being there at the start, that could have been one win, an easy one win for them, and that would have propelled them into the semis.
Yeah, it's a good point you make. They tried Tim Seifert at the top, and that didn't result in much. So they've had their issues with availability and injury. Rishabh Pant's point, though, that Piyush makes, I think fair to say it's been an underwhelming season for Pant, the batter. How much do you think that's contributed in the eventual outcome of the season?
Well, it has to. Because Rishabh Pant, with a sort of 400-run season, once again propels them into that top four quite comfortably. So what we talked the whole time, I still thought he looked good. It's just he didn't have that big innings that led Delhi to a victory, or a couple of those throughout the season, which we normally expect because he's such an aggressive player. He can play complementary innings, or he can play that innings that actually gets him to a win. So obviously there's going to be disappointment. There's disappointment for the 6 teams that didn't make it. But once again, because Delhi's team looks so good, they're going to be probably more disappointed than others.
All right, Piyush, I think we're going to stick to Pant as we round this chat off. And this is a question I think I would have asked independent of tonight and Pant's own bad 5-10 moments. But I know Ravi Shastri said on our show that he's certainly a street-smart cricketer who should be captain. But I can't help but think his underwhelming batting form, the fact that there's David Warner there, they could look elsewhere too. But Pant, the captain, do you see him having a long enough future at DC as captain? Do you think they should look at other options, given how much selection, tactics have all played a role? We've seen Delhi's games be defined by some key calls by Rishabh Pant through the season.
Well, see, he's still learning because if you see the last season, that was the first time he led the team. He was leading the team, and this season, he led the team fully. And he's still learning, and he'll learn with the experience. Two decisions which he has made, we still think like that could have been better, but that will happen when you lead and you'll gain the experience. So they can still look up to him, and I feel when you have an Indian captain, he has better knowledge of the domestic players and the Indian players. So I think it's better to stick to him. And as I always say, he's a street smart cricketer, and he'll learn with the experience for sure.
You'd go with that? Pant, the right option, even though he's a learning captain or a captain that still has a way to go?
He is the right option, but the only variable in that is that David Warner's in your team. And David Warner is a leader within IPL, has been hugely successful, and his track record speaks for itself. So if David Warner wasn't in the team, then 100% continue on with Rishabh Pant, develop him, let him grow as a captain. But they have the opportunity to utilise David Warner's leadership in some capacity.
Otherwise, no major changes needed. Would you look at any key positions or players that need to be released in order to capitalise on next year's auction? Or are you just going to hope that everyone's fit and available and then we're okay?
I think fit and available is a big part of it. I think they'll be so pleased with Rovman Powell this year and the performance that he came into it. They've worn obviously Mitch Marsh at the back of the year. So like all teams that missed out, there's going to be some positives, and you can feel like you can push towards a very good team next year. Kuldeep Yadav had a great season. So you feel like this is a team that can do better.
Piyush, same question for you. Any major areas that you think Delhi would look at when it comes to the auction? Any players that you think are likely to be released, or we won't say that just yet? This still looks like a good squad.
No, they look like a good squad, and I don't think so they need to release anyone. If they can manage to get one or more batters for the middle order next season, that would be good. But I don't think so release. Maybe like I feel one odd fast bowler like for the team, because if you just see, have Chetan Sakaria who has done well, and Rick Nokia, and as Dan mentioned, like totally depending on the availability and the injury concern. And I think one more Indian faster bowler would be just add to this.